Hi friends, it's Fluffy Toad. This week is Fortified Bursting Storming, so it's a great week for pushing IO and breaking that keystone level that you've been stuck behind. Here are my talents, and here's my character information. My WoW armory will be in the description below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the key. This first pull is a big pull, so we're going to be using Lust, and we're going to be using our mirror images on pull. Arcane Fury is about to go off, and we're going to be spell stealing that ability. You want to make sure that you use CC to stop piercing shards. All of the mobs are about to die, but we don't really have to worry about it since we have a priest for MD. Our tank used all of his CC last pull, so now we have to be more considerate about using ours. 2 lashers go off, so I'm going to be using my Ice Cold here. Whenever lashers go off, you always want to make sure that you're using something because it's super dangerous to have the debuff on you during a fortified week, especially a bursting week. Not much to say about this pull, it's pretty standard. Just make sure that the tenders don't get their cast off so you don't turn into a tree. Since it's fortified week, the bosses aren't that scary, and consuming stomp it won't really kill me as long as I use my shield, as you can see here.
Morphing time.
For this boss, I found that the best way to position yourself is between the flowers that you want to get. This is nice because you don't have to worry about moving and repositioning later on. After this, it's pretty much just use a defensive whenever there's a consuming stomp, especially if there's a flower still up. Then it's just rinse and repeat, you're doing the same thing the entire fight.
100.0%. .7%.
So for this upcoming pull, you want to spellsteal Arcane Fury as quickly as possible. You want to have this at the start of your combustion because this gives you a 35% increased damage done. If you don't do this as quickly as possible, it's probably not that worth it because it's wasting a global. As you can see here, I pick it up really late. I don't get a benefit from any of the buff because I don't cast it all during this time. Partially because I got knocked in the air from storming, and then I also had to hard cast my Pyroblast.
Warping time.
So for this pull, you just want to make sure that you're not getting hit by the Construct Frontal, and you're also kicking the Elemental Waking Bane. So something else we can note is that everybody has a buff on them right now, and the buff that the tank has increases haste of all allies near him by 5%, so it's super important to stand right by the tank, but avoid getting hit by the frontals. This buff might not always be on the tank, since the buffs do change, so pay attention to what debuffs your friends have.
Warping time. Warping time. Warping time.
So here we're going to be lusting the Lieutenant. He's a super dangerous mob for the tank, so we're going to be trying to burn him down as quickly as possible. You should also be purging Brilliant Scales because it gives a 30% magic DR to the mobs. I didn't know this at the time, so I wasn't actively purging it, but this is something that I'll be keeping in mind for the future.
Warping time. 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 Warping time.
This boss doesn't really do much, aside from the tank frontal and then spawning the ads. Just make sure that you're burning down the ads as quickly as possible and you're interrupting their casts. During phase 2 is probably where you should be using your mirror images just because it's a longer duration DR. After that, you should use your defensives if you're in danger.
%.
So right here, our tank shadow melts on accident, I think, but we can get rid of aggro in two ways. We could have used our mirror images, or we could have used invis. Unfortunately, I get hit and my cauterize procs. These breakers are the really scary mobs that you want to pay attention to. Shoulder Slam does a lot of damage, and then it's comboed into the Roar, which can kill you. So make sure you're paying attention to his casts, and if you get the Shoulder Slam, you should definitely be using a defensive.
Warping time. Warping time. Warping time. Warping time. Warping time. 100.0%. Warping time. Warping time. Warping time. Warping time. 99.9%. Warping time. Warping time.
We're going to be skipping these two breakers, which is super easy. You just hug the right side of the wall while the tank runs left. For this boss, feel free to use your combustion on CD. The only time you want to hold combustion or SKB is when the boss is about to do absolute zero. For absolute zero, a shield should be enough to survive, but if you're worried, you can use your mirror images or any other defensive that you have
100.0%.
available. I don't think you should be using your invis during devastation just because it's another DR that you can use during absolute zero. When it comes to frost bombs, it's really important to be the furthest person out just because you can blink immediately after. This keeps the room clean and gives your team a clear path. Then it's just doing the same thing over and over and over again until you kill the boss.
%. %.
So for this boss, you have to kill the crystals as quickly as possible, specifically the hardened crystal. The hardened crystal is what radiates the damage, and until its shield is broken, it'll keep doing damage to you and your team. So you want to make sure that you're only using combustion during the crystals. The best way that I found for this is that I will use SKBs until the crystals are about to pop, then I'll use my combustion for the first one. The boss is at 77% and at 75%, that's when the crystals pop out. So I'm going to be holding my SKB and combustion for this phase. Here I'm going to be casting my SKB into the hardened crystal, and we're going to be trying to burn that down as quickly as possible. Since we use combustion and SKB during this phase, we're probably not going to have combustion back up for 50%, but luckily that's when we're going to be lusting. So I'm going to be sending this SKB, and then I'm going to be holding the second one until we phase. Right here is where we're going to be lusting, and I'm going to try to get my SKB back. This second crystal is significantly harder than the first one, so we're going to be using our defensives during it. So my combustion is going to be back up, and I'm going to be using it because we're super close to getting the third set of crystals. We also have the benefit of lust and our potion. This third set of crystals should just melt. I'm going to be using my mirror images for this set of crystals, and if I need to, I'll be using my invis since this is the last set of crystals.
%.
And with that, we time the key. I super appreciate you watching this video, and good luck with your keys.